Well, good morning, everybody. How are you? We're back with another live stream. Hoping you can hear me. There we go. I hear myself. We are live. I'm excited because I now have Google Fiber. Woohoo! Not promoting them or anything, but my internet's faster. What can I say? So everything's popping up faster on my screens over here. Good morning, Lauren. Thanks for joining us. So hopefully everything's streaming faster for you. It's streaming faster for me. So that means I can see everything a little bit quicker here. And I'm excited for our live stream this morning. This was really fun researching this topic. So why don't we just go ahead and hop into it? For our newbies, we're doing You Be the Behavior Consultant, a live stream I do most every Monday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And how does it work? We have a topic for discussion. I'll give you some prompts to get us talking, and I've got some video clips for us to look at that will help us with our discussions today. And then we're going to recap it all at the end. So what are we talking about today? If you got the email or saw the notice on social media, we're talking, well, I called it Flirting with Disaster. Some of you old music fans may know a 38, well, no, Molly Hatchet. Oh my God, it was Molly Hatchet who had the album called Flirting with Disaster. So that's the song soundtrack that's going through my brain right now. And we're going to talk about what does thrill-seeking teach us about animal training. And so we kind of also have to define what thrill-seeking means, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I have some questions here to kind of get us thinking about what that means. And yeah, so what do you guys think? Is it ever fun to be afraid? And maybe you can think of some examples in your own life as a human being where it was maybe sort of a little fun to be afraid. And that will help you think about it a little bit. And then we'll get into maybe why it might be fun. And then we can think about maybe, are there examples in the animal world? Can you think of any examples where animals might be doing the same thing that we sometimes see people do? And then we can kind of get into, is there any way that we could take advantage of this in animal training, which you might think, God, is it possible? I don't know. And so that's kind of where I want to go today. So what about it, guys? Are there any things that you ever do in your life that might be tiptoeing that line of, I'm a little scared, but it's kind of fun too. Anybody have any examples that you can think of where you've experienced a little bit of fear, but it was also kind of fun? I don't know. What do you think? I can think of some in my life, but I don't want to steal the show here. So I would love to hear your experiences where maybe you had some fun being afraid. Anybody got any ideas? I know we got a few people on here, so and maybe you're afraid right now. Al says water work with a walrus for the first time. Fun, but also a little intimidating, perhaps. I know I might be a little intimidated. Oh, I love this one that Lauren says. Yeah, presenting new information to a group of your peers. You know what? I actually wrote that down on a piece of paper here. That public speaking could be one of those experiences that can be fun, but scary at the same time. And I'd love for you guys to talk about maybe some of the emotions you experienced with all that too, if you feel inclined, because I think that's really something that I want to draw out as we get into this, because there's some important things I think that happen out of those experiences. Let's see. Chris says, I'm always fearful when my cockatoos free fly, but it is exciting to watch them fly. Love scary movies. I think that is a perfect example. Actually, that is one of the ones when I was doing research on this, it's one of the examples they often give is scary movies. There's a lot of people that really love to go see scary movies. There's some people that don't, right? But there are people who really gravitate towards scary movies. Yep. So that they find it really fun to be afraid. I have to admit, I am not one of those people that tends to gravitate towards scary movies, but I've got friends that is their jam. They love horror films. And we might want to talk about what that is, what might make it fun to be afraid. And again, you can relate that maybe to your own personal experiences. What is it about these things that you mentioned as examples that makes it fun, do you think? Yeah. You know, why is it exciting but also scary? Feel free, and so for anybody that's on here, you're welcome to give more examples or even think about what might be fun about those situations, or what you might think, or what you know what's your hypothesis about why it might be fun at the same time as scary. Once it's over, you feel accomplished. Absolutely. Yes, I think that is definitely one of the benefits of those experiences is like, wow, I overcame that. That was a little tough, but I did it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I think that is absolutely one of the benefits of going through an experience like that. Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe you know, a little bit of growth there. And Chris agrees. She agrees with that. Yeah. I don't want to put words in people's mouths, so I'm not gonna add. Let's see. So Patricia says scary movies and public speaking. You are and you know you're going to live. Versus thrill seeking like skydiving, where it might not be a sure thing. Well, I don't know. I've never gone skydiving. I don't know if anyone on here has. I don't know how risky skydiving is. That's a good question. Maybe skydivers think it's not risky. I don't know. Maybe there's more safety in it than we are aware of. You know, it's like flying airplanes. I think you know, maybe pilots would say it's a lot safer than we actually think. Maybe it is safer than we think. I don't know. I've never done it before. I think to me it sounds scary, but maybe this people that skydive, they see it as thrilling but also really safe. That's a good question. I think Patricia would say it's maybe really scary. Maybe more scary. Yeah. But I guess maybe you're guaranteed to live through public speaking and guaranteed to live through a scary movie. For the most part, right? Unless something really outrageous were to happen. Yeah, so those are that's a good point. Yeah, but you're onto something there in your comment, Patricia, that we're going to get into a little tangent. And Fiona says, I think the fear comes from not knowing what is going to happen and the thrill from wondering if it will work. Yeah. And Chris says, I've heard there is something in our genes that makes us thrill seekers or not. Oh, you guys are so good. Yeah, both of you guys are spot on with those comments. Yes, you've been absolutely reading up or paying attention to stuff before we even got onto this live stream here. Yeah, I think you're both right there. Yes. Yeah, so there could be yeah, well, I'll save my comments on that because I've got some slides that'll address some of those comments there. But I love the contributions so far here. There's a really good points you all are making. Really good ones. What about animals? Do you guys think animals do anything like this at all? Do we think they do? Do we think animals might share these experiences that we experience? And this is harder to think about. If animals do this kind of stuff. It's a tougher one. Yeah, or even if you've observed any behaviors in your animals that you kind of go, ooh, that looks like a moment of where maybe they were a little afraid and then they overcame it and then it looked like, you know, maybe they got excited afterwards, like, oh, I did it. Like, oh my gosh, woo, I made it through that, but now I'm happy. Maybe they felt accomplished too, which how do we operationalize that? But, maybe you've seen your animals go through something like that in a training session. Yes, observing them trying new things, intros into new exhibits or new members. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel like I've seen that as well. And I'm hopefully going to try and share a little video just like a little, like you'll see it for an instant, I think. Like a moment of it, but I also have some other videos to share with you where I think maybe we see more of that in maybe sort of behavior in the wild. Well, you guys have made some really great observations and contributions here, so I'll share a few things here. So I think oh, you have a comment. Crows. Oh, yes, Chris, you've got my video examples here. Crows pulling on predators' tails like a coyote or something. Is that fun or trying to get to the food resource? Yes. So I actually put some of those video clips in here. So we'll take a look at that. Maybe I should look at that first right now here. I've personally seen this in person. So I pulled some clips of it where crows, I don't know if you guys have seen this, where crows will just go pull on animals' tails. And I have seen crows, harass other animals to get at a resource. But there's lots of videos of crows doing it, in my opinion, where it does seem to be more of this is fun, not as opposed to I'm trying to get at a resource. So I'll show that video next. And the first time a hawk catches prey. Ooh, interesting. That would be fun to watch. And I do have, you'll see I've got these two bald eagles here doing their courtship stuff. And so we'll look at the eagles and birds of prey doing their courtship spiral stuff. So let's go ahead and look at the hawk or the crow video, and I can talk over it. Yeah, because it doesn't have any audio. But you can see sort of the hesitancy, right? So I think there is a little bit of that avoidance, right? So there's and hesitancy. So I think, that tells you that there's also that sort of escape avoidance, but then there's approaching this stimulus, right? And so that tells you it's not all about this is a good thing to approach. I should avoid it and escape it, but at the same time, it's choosing to engage with this stimulus, right? So there's something that's gained out of doing this that could be fun. And I'll go back to our thrill-seeking, operationalizing thrill-seeking in a minute, and that'll help kind of explain that. Nothing more reinforcing than having control over someone else. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I do think that controlling the behavior of others can be reinforcing too. That can be one kind of reinforcer. And I want you to notice in this particular video, so these two cats are about to get into a fight. And I also want you to look at the behavior of the crow and how it changes as the crows start fighting. I want you to keep that in mind as well. So watch the crow's behavior. And how the crow escalates. I think that's really interesting. Yeah, and it says even the pigeons are thrill-seeking by sticking around in front of the cat, or maybe they're just dumb. So, and I think that's all really important stuff. That the behavior of those animals around the cats in those contexts. And again, looking at this crow here, I don't think this crow is trying to eat the snake. This is an animal that's way bigger than the snake. Or the snake is way bigger than this crow. I think the snake is more threatened by the crow than anything, but okay, I think this one's the last one. Okay, so lots of examples of that, huh? So I wanted to operationalize thrill-seeking behavior because if you go to look up these words, thrill-seeking or sensation-seeking or risk-taking, there's even a word counterphobia. They're all labels, and if you look around from, they really the sort of mentalistic approach is really kind of describing these as sort of a within the person kind of thing, a personality type. But if we look at it more from a behavior analytic approach, we're just going to look at it as a class of behaviors. And if we look at it that way, then we're going to see it more that it's this is behavior, and emitting this behavior gets some kind of result. And so if we look at it as a behavior, then I think a nice way to describe it is it's behavior that's seeking novel and highly stimulating activity and experiences. And this can include approaching and engaging with unknown and unfamiliar and or aversive stimuli, which may result in conditions that are new, varied, and unpredictable. And I think it's this. So when I think about it, like if I see this stream of behavior happening, I think it's that new, that varied, and unpredictable that leads to this change in stimulus, and it's this change of neurochemicals going on. And so let's get into this a little bit more, because we haven't really talked about how fear could be fun. So fear can be fun because it causes the body to release certain chemicals, just like all behavior, that, but in this case, those chemicals will make our body feel energy that blocks us from feeling pain so that we can protect ourselves. And it also shuts down non-essential systems, so we can tend to be focused on exactly what's going on in that moment. The rest of the world fades away. So we're basically kind of getting, like it's the cortisol and the dopamine kind of working together, right? And when those circumstances are safe, this can be really fun. If we were in real danger, then we would be focused on survival and the fun disappears. So that thrill is lost when the danger becomes really real. And I think, as what you guys pointed out, the genetics might also be a factor. So for some people and animals, I would say, I'm kind of speculating on the animals, but I think, again, if we were to look at, some of the things we've observed with animals, that some animals may have, and people may have, a higher tolerance for experiences that others would seek to escape or avoid. And we've talked about the Scary Movie and skydiving, and maybe it's like rock climbing or whitewater rafting or roller coasters. So some may produce less cortisol, or maybe they don't have good receptors for dopamine, and some may produce more dopamine under certain circumstances, and their body says, okay, let's try this could be fun, whereas others may say, stop, it's not safe. And then we may also see physical differences. So maybe we have someone like me, I get really dizzy and nauseous easily, so things that spin, I'm going to be like, forget it. I mean, I don't do good on boats, so it sounds stupid, but like a cruise for me is like the worst thing in the world. So I see all these people that are like, yeah, cruises, and I'm like, boo. Not that that's dangerous per se, but that doesn't sound like fun. But we see younger animals or teenagers that might be more inclined to do something, whereas an old animal or geriatric person might be like, I'm not going to do that. Our build, just how we are built physically, we may not be able to do something. So all those physical factors may impact our inclination to participate in something that we might consider thrill-seeking or not. So there may be genetic components, there may be physical factors that make us more likely to engage in certain behaviors that might fall under that category of, quote, thrill-seeking. And I think some of you already talked about the benefits, right? So overcoming a challenge can increase confidence, again, a label, but even if we're not in real danger, or even if we are not in any real danger, it still feels real. So we have that sense of accomplishment, like, oh, I did it, I overcame that scary thing. And so that evolutionary benefit may be that, we've explored the limits of risk and we benefited from survival. We got new food, we got new territory. It broadens your animal's world. And the other thing that I think, we've all experienced, or at least I know I have, is that surviving something that might have been challenging can bring us together, right? You know, we know that emotions can be contagious, and that's why I wanted to point out that crow and how it was responding to the cats as the fight escalated. That behavior of the crow escalated, right? So we know that emotional experiences can be contagious, and we get that emotion contagion. So fear can be a really powerful emotional experience. And so you don't want to forget something that you need to escape or avoid. And so we can share that kind of bonding experience. You survived it together. You know, you guys have certainly done something where you worked on a project together. Maybe it had its highs and its lows and it was challenging. And then in the end, you overcame it all and you all like, yes, we survived that together. Maybe it was a work project or a challenging work environment. Or you think about people that got stranded somewhere together and survived, or survivors of conflict, or you were suppressed. And I'm sure you've all seen those videos where like groups of elephants, you know, come together to protect a baby from something. And I've certainly seen like chimps that, all holding on to each other after, something that's scary that has happened and they survived it. So we do see animals, especially social animals, that come together after an experience. And so, those are things that we want to think about and how that might impact training even, I think. So those are the kinds of things that came to mind to me when I think about these responses. And so I want to show you some more videos, and you guys keep thinking here, and feel free to comment if any of these things speak to you. This one video, the guy is going to narrate it, but it's photo stills. But I think what's really interesting in the photo stills is that you can see like the faces of the birds and the body language. And I'll show you a video afterwards of courtship of birds of prey, so you can see it faster. But and the guy's going to explain it, so I'm going to let him explain it, but I think it's pretty interesting to watch.
Started 100 feet up, a southeast-facing bank above the Salish Sea between Vancouver Island and BC mainland in Canada. And this was an adult red-tailed hawk just doing its thing, soaring and enjoying life, when a couple of ravens came along and started to give it quite a hard time. So this went on for a while, and then they took off. Eventually, the hawk sees a juvenile bald eagle. So this could be fun. Now we don't know what happens. Yes, this next 21 frames took just 3 seconds, and the hawk seemed to initiate the interaction. So here's what happened. It all happened so very fast, and here they are at the moment, just before they lock talons. And whether this is practicing for courtship display, which both types of predator birds do, but this is a juvenile eagle and of course an adult red-tailed hawk, so maybe it wanted to teach it how to do certain parts of the courtship display, but who knows. Whether it's an aggressive display, I don't know, but this went on it seemed very fast at the time, but when you see it this way, sorry, it's not too clear in places here, but at least you get the idea. This really shows the red tail above hanging onto the eagle. And at this point it's difficult to say what's happened here. The eagle's basically upside down, but the talons are still locked. The eagle calling out here, what are we going to do, he said. Eventually They, yes, they disconnected, but the red tail didn't immediately go away. It was looking down as though to have some more interaction, but they decided eventually, well, no, that's enough. We'll go our own way. So there you go. And eventually it came over to me, and it was looking straight down at me as if saying, how do you like that? Started.
So I think what's really cool about that video is, like I was saying, you can kind of see these snapshots of their body language. And I might go back to, let me go to this. To me, what I think about with those, you know, with something like that, there was that, the factor that, you know, those animals were probably not familiar with each other. And there's a lot of unpredictability and lots of varied conditions, and it's responding to all those varied conditions. I think that that makes that interaction interesting and varied and potentially thrilling, so to speak. And if you haven't seen what those courtship displays can look like, I have it in higher speed. And there's no audio, so I can talk over it. But this is, you know, two bald eagles doing those spirals. And, you know, these birds probably know each other, but still, as you can see, it can be pretty thrilling and exciting. Although, you know, for them, perhaps they have more experience and understanding and skills with flight and, you know, and maybe can predict more what's going to happen. But I think that previous video, there's going to be more unpredictability for the animals. These are two red tails, and so they're not going to stay engaged as long. And I think I've got another bald eagle clip there. But again, you know, and that disengaging right before you connect with the water. All right, so I've got another video we can look at where we can see I think what to me is this is another video where I think that I've thought about, you know, why does this happen? And this is another short one. We'll let these birds do their thing one more time here, and then we can look at this other video. and it's two little clips spliced together, but all right. Boom. So you can see this lion cub approaching these antelope, and they scatter, right? Not completely. Some of them stop and look, and then as the cub walks away, they approach. And I've seen this before. I've had this happen when I'm the aversive stimulus and I'm approaching herds when I'm doing constructional approach stuff and using a negative reinforcement contingency. And I always find this really interesting because, you know, obviously we see that these lions are not hunting. These animals know they're not hunting. But at the same time, you know, they have plenty of places where they can graze. They don't have to graze right next to this herd of lions, although we're not seeing the entire place. Maybe there's a watering hole nearby. I don't know. But I always find that really fascinating, you know, that herds of antelope will walk up on, you know, lions, you know, and, you know, maybe it is just learning more about what they're doing, but do they really have to be that close? So, you know, that's another one of those things that I think about. And so, you know, I do wonder, you know, is there a little bit of a thrill in coming closer? And, you know, is there a little bit of charge that happens from getting closer and then running away, but being okay? And again, when we think about our definition, in their head, are they thinking, well, conditions are safe. Lions typically don't eat antelope when they look like this, you know, or when it's just the cub that's approaching. So maybe the antelope have enough experience with lions that they can make the determination that this is a condition in which it's safe to do these behaviors, if that makes sense. So with that in mind, let's talk about possible application. How might we use this information to be helpful to us. So it makes me think about all those things that we've talked about. Could we create an environment in which it's safe to contact unknown, unfamiliar, or an aversive stimulus? And I think, I was going through videos that I had and thinking about moments where, like we were talking about, those moments where maybe your animal has that little like moment of, oh my gosh, I did it. And I have this one video with my dog that I really kind of feel like I had that moment where he contacted something that normally for him is an aversive stimulus. And afterwards, we had like a little moment where he was like, oh my God, I'm happy I did it. It was kind of that sense of accomplishment thing, like you guys were talking about. And it's not, like a roller coaster ride, so to speak. It's more of just a moment. And so I think that's really kind of what I want to share with you. And this is very much in line with all the things that we've talked about so many times where, we have to look at our nonlinear contingency analysis, which we've done a bunch. There's degrees of freedom here. And other things that we want to think about is how do we communicate success? How do we celebrate success with that animal? And so that means knowing your animal and again, I would think about that emotional contagion. What does that body language look like? And maybe that's not something you can do with every species that you work with, but there are species that we do work with, even in exotic animal learning. Like I think of, people that I know that, like work with chimpanzees, we have ways that we get excited with them, that's safe. And so you're going to see in this clip, and I'll set it up here. So my dog, you see here, he's comfortable now drinking from these outside water bowls as soon as I spray water from the hose. In the past, he was afraid of the spray coming out of the hose. He didn't like that. So like anytime I would spray the water from the hose, whether I was like going to give my bird a bath in her aviary or watering plants or filling up these water bowls outside, he would immediately go away. It was very just, casual. It's just like, oh, the hose, I'm leaving. And, he's a dog that I adopted from the shelter when he was an adult. So I don't know his reinforcement history with water being sprayed from a hose. So I just, for fun, I wanted to see if I could get him comfortable with that. So what you'll see in this video clip is I'm going to use a negative reinforcement contingency, but also a positive reinforcement contingency in the form of scratching his butt, also him wanting to be near me. And also I'm tossing a treat to get him to go away from me so that he can approach me, and also the water that is being sprayed from the hose. And when he approaches me, I turn the water off. So that is a negative reinforcement contingency, because at the beginning of the training session, the hose being on is aversive. And you're going to see the clip is kind of speeded up. So there are times when I leave the water on longer so that, that's raising my criteria. The other thing, when I talk about degrees of freedom here, he can get water from other places at the exact same time that this training session is happening. So these water bowls that you see here are full of water and available to him. He can also go inside the house, because I have a dog door that he knows how to use, and he can get water from a water bowl inside. He also, like many dogs, will drink from the toilet if he feels like it. So he can go drink from the toilet if he wants to, because one of the things he loves is fresh water. And so that's one of the reasons why drinking from the hose is something he does. I think, that is appealing to him, because one of the things, whenever I would fill up the water bowls, he would immediately drink as soon as I pulled the hose away in the past, because he wanted the fresh water. And so you'll kind of see the results of that. And what I really want you to look for in this video clip is what happens, his body language after we sort of have success. I kind of feel like this is that moment that we were talking about of, I overcame my fear, and oh my gosh, it's fun and exciting. And so I kind of feel like that was the moment that he might have experienced, I don't know for sure. And and that's kind of what I see in this video clip. So, well, I'll play this here, and I can talk over it because I don't think there's great sound on it, but you can see he walks away when I spray. I'm just kind of showing you that he doesn't like it. And again, I'm going to turn it on here, and I think he goes in the house on the second time I spray it. Yep, he's like, nope, I don't like that. So now, he starts walking towards me. I give him a butt scratch, and I turn off the water. So it's negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement paired together. I toss a treat to get him to go away so I can do another rep. I scratch his butt too, so we're doing that combination of things. And so you're just going to see reps here that are speeded up. So it's a combination of negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement. And again, I have to use things to get him to go away so I can do reps. Otherwise, he'll just sit there and stare at me for attention. But I also want him to, engage with the water. So I'm trying to prompt him a little bit towards the hose now that, he's not really, he's hanging out. So now he's actually thinking about the hose. And so I just like that his body language is, kind of like, oh, this is, and you can see that little bit of excitement there. And so he got excited, and there's just that's the moment that I'm talking about there. And I also get to pair it with positive reinforcement. And that was a year ago, and now he's just calm and relaxed about it. And he'll anytime I'm filling up his water bowls with the hose, he comes over immediately because he knows it's fresh water and he's not afraid of the water coming from the hose. So does that make sense? I know it's just a little tiny snippet of happiness. And it's not really, the whole thrill of, going on a roller coaster ride. But I just kind of wanted to see if, I wanted to share that to see if anybody, has moments like that in their animal training that they can think of. And if they might see where that might be something they could apply, or they can visualize that, or create situations where, or where they see that how this might apply to their animal training. That's kind of where I'm getting at. And again, maybe, parts of this are not really new to us. We have lots of situations where we're trying to create an environment where it's easy for our animal to do the behavior. But sometimes we talk about creating the situation where the animal, never experiences, we want them so calm and relaxed they kind of never have that experience of a fear response. I'm thinking about, what about when we survive the challenge, but we also say never again? Well, that would be, pushing it too far, right? So what's the middle of the road, I guess, is what I'm asking, right? Because we have that one extreme where we don't want them to have any kind of fear response, right? So this is a good point. I like what you're asking, Patricia. So we have that one extreme where it's like, I don't want them to have any kind of reaction whatsoever. I want them to be so calm and relaxed they don't even notice what's going on. So, right, there's that one extreme. And then we have the other extreme, like you're saying, Patricia, where it was so aversive that they're like, I'm never going to do that again. So how do we create the environment where they feel safe and maybe get a little bit of an excitement, but then also feel the experience of, I survived it and I did great, and it was fun. So it sounds like there's like this middle of the road place that could potentially create some benefits. And is there a way to create that? I guess that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm sort of trying to find out, if there's a middle road for that. And if it occurs naturally, which it kind of seems like it does, Could we take advantage of that? That's what I'm suggesting or asking. And if you guys have found that place, and I haven't really looked for it before, to be honest, and so I may have more videos that apply to that. I just didn't dig around. That was the one that kind of came to my mind when I was thinking about it, because I was just thinking about the way that my dog responded in that moment, where he kind of went like, there was a little snippet of body language that went, "Ooh, this is kind of fun," as opposed to, he could have tentatively approached that. And well, I mean, I think there was a little hesitation, but there was also like tail wagging and like getting into it and getting, and body language that went fun, right? I think that's the thing when you think about people on a roller coaster. The body language is laughter. There may be a combination of like, "Oh, I'm scared," but laughter, right? Same with the person that's going through the haunted house. Although, again, those are extreme. People are trying to go for extreme reactions. We're not necessarily trying to go for extreme reactions in our training sessions. I don't know that I would want that anyway. But where is that middle road, right? It's just food for thought. It's just stuff to think about. Is there a way to create that environment where it's maybe little rolling hills on a roller coaster as opposed to a big giant drop on a roller coaster? It's just interesting stuff to think about, because I think we do see these situations in the wild. And not that, we want to do everything that happens in the wild. I know we don't necessarily look at the wild as like the perfect model of how things, but if there are some things that we see that appear to be beneficial in some ways, can we create those benefits for animals in our environments in some ways? Just some food for thought, right? And again, only because I have seen some things that are moments where animals kind of go, "Whoa, this was fun and I did it." Chris says, interesting, Pat. Are scary things to be seen as enrichment? Are my cockatoos enriched when they are startled by a raptor flying over their aviaries when they are safe? Something to think about. Maybe I'm just thinking of people, like about myself as and skiing or a roller coaster. And again, I think this goes back to the individual thing, which is a good point, right? So when we went back to our slide about genetics and fear and physical factors, and I think this can change throughout your lifetime, right? Me now wouldn't do the same things I might do when I was 20 years old. I think, physically and just, as an older person, there's some things that I just know I wouldn't take those same risks because I'm not in the same physical shape as I was when I was younger. And I think, I have that more sense of self-preservation than I did when I was younger. And I think genetically, I may be one of those people that is a little bit more, maybe genetically predisposed towards not taking risks than some others. So I think we do have to take those into consideration. Let's see. I think that's that's where you see the difference between acute and chronic. I think it's okay to feel stress or fear and teach, hey, come back to me when it's safe, versus allowing it to become out of control. Yeah, true. Yeah. So if it was a chronic stress thing, that might be where we start seeing it have its toll on somebody. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, like I was saying, if we go back to our application, I think we would have to create an environment in which it's safe to contact unknown, unfamiliar, or an aversive stimulus. And so what does that look like? What does safe look like? And I don't know if the cockatoos feel like it's safe when the raptor flies over the aviaries. That would be a question, Chris, for you to evaluate. Do you think the way the cockatoos respond, do they feel safe with that? I don't know. And because I thought, and actually when you mentioned that made me think about like when a dog barks like through the window at somebody or at the, at a fence with another dog. I think like different dogs respond differently for that. But again, it also comes back to what's the outcome. And so that was another thing I kept questioning every time I looked at a video. Like sometimes the outcome that the animal wants is really obvious. Like sometimes they do want something to go away, or they do want access to something. And so you have to evaluate the behavior. Is it really about going for, is it really about getting that little thrill, or is it truly about, I want something to go away? Or it's escape and avoidance, or I want distance. So it is going back to, evaluating what's the reason for the behavior. So if I were setting it up though for an animal training session, I would be thinking about, how am I creating that? I'm wondering if I take my bird into an unfamiliar environment, somebody else's home, can I use the slight discomfort, say, to be more trusting of me? Well, that's a big, broad question. There's some other things to think about there. Like, would she be willing to shower there when she won't at home? Well, there's more to that question, I think. I think there would be more things to discuss, to be honest. And it's kind of off the topic. So that's a deeper question. To be honest. Yeah, so I might have to save that one for another time. Yeah, no, it's all right. I get it. You're just thinking off the top of your head there. You're wondering out loud. All right. But yeah, so, I mean, this is food for thought, just, if you can take that little snippet of that moment there, that moment of this is, by their behavior, it's downright a death threat. If the raptor is far away in a tree, the twos will all sit and yell at it instead of flying into the barn. Yeah. So it sounds like the cockatoos maybe are not really, for them, it's more of, I want distance from that. They want an outcome. It's not so much of it's not, for them, they're not seeing it as safe. They want to drive that animal away. So that's why, like, when I was showing you the videos of the crow pulling on the tail of those animals, I don't think that behavior is, I want that animal to go away. I think it's different, right? So you really have to evaluate these behaviors, each one specifically to see what it is. Yeah, because I could have easily shown videos of crows mobbing a hawk, or pulling at the tail of another animal that's eating food, and they want that animal to go away so that they can get access to the food. There's lots of videos of that as well. So you really have to evaluate each individual behavior and really kind of determine what is the outcome the animal wants. The crows have chosen the thrill. I do think that is the difference in these particular video clips that I've shared. So you'll want to do a very specific evaluation and see what you think might actually be going on there. So it is tough to kind of tease apart. And so that's why I kind of go back to the definition here. Why they might be doing this, to me, I think it is kind of creating, doing these behaviors, and I will say there was like another study done with mice, basically to see if they could, selectively breed for genetic strains that were more likely to engage in these behaviors. And they were able to do that. Obviously it was done in a laboratory setting. And so they were basically, testing things like, how did they respond to when a new mouse, a stranger mouse was introduced, whether they were more likely to approach and engage with that stranger mouse versus, go move away from a stranger mouse. So I think we are kind of really looking at a specific class of behaviors and hoping to get this outcome, like I said, in which there is, and I hate to say it in that study, and I'll put in those of you that are members, you can get access to those studies. I think that particular study was an open source one. Unfortunately, they did, it was what they call, like a terminal study where the little mice did lose their lives in the end, but they looked at their brains and everything and their genetics, and that's how they kind of determined that they had differences physiologically. But yeah, so they did show that, like I was saying, genetically, that they had these differences in terms of producing less cortisol and having less receptors for dopamine, and being able to produce more dopamine under these circumstances. And so that's where they kind of came to these conclusions about their neurochemistry and their physiological differences in terms of how they might be more likely to be inclined to engage in those types of classes of behaviors. So that's where some of that stuff came from. So I'll give you those links to those resources in our in the education program there. So yeah, I know it's a little difficult to tease out, but yeah, so I did spend some time on that so that we could sort of isolate that this class of behaviors, like I said, is a little bit different than just say, mobbing animals to try and drive them away, or driving them away to get access to resources, things like that. So it's a little different, and trying to isolate that specifically to look at that as how that might be beneficial to us. And again, I think if you go back and look at, some of these things that we talked about specifically and how it might be beneficial, that's how you might want to think about it if you're thinking about how can I incorporate that into animal training. And I think it's, like I said, it's not something that I think we've really thought about or explored very much. So it might be one of these things to think about a little bit more, and how it may impact your training. But I think we have glimpses of it. I think there's little moments where it happens in our animal training, and maybe we haven't really thought about it. And so maybe it isn't so much that we should be doing this really extra special safeguarding against, every single moment where an animal, overcomes a fear response and, maybe has no contact with any kind of, fear response. But again, I agree, we don't want this to be going to the point where it's like, everything's so scary. I think it's just an interesting observation, and it makes you think about, what's the line? I don't know. I think there's more to explore about it, is what I'm saying. And as always, I think these questions just give us more to look at and explore and keep us learning, and that the journey is not done, right? There's just more to learn here. So with that, I'm going to go to our recap here. So we do observe animals both in the wild and in managed care approaching, engaging with unknown, unfamiliar, and or aversive stimuli, which may result in conditions that are new, varied, and unpredictable. And for humans, these classes of behaviors have been described as thrill-seeking and are believed to result in a combination of neurochemical changes that we label as fun. From an evolutionary perspective, this may be beneficial to survival, but it also produces emotional behaviors that can connect us to our animals and animals to each other. It could potentially help our animals become more resilient to changing, challenging conditions. In humans, we often describe this as growth, right? I keep thinking about that example of public speaking, right? I did a public presentation. Woohoo! I feel like I made it, right? Because that's one for me that I can relate to. To take advantage of this observation requires careful consideration of the individual, which we talked about a lot. It's a starting point, and creating an environment, and it's starting point. So where that animal, might begin in terms of contacting some new situation, and creating an environment in which engaging in these behaviors is done in a way that results in desired outcomes. So of course, that's like that whole thing we were saying about it's the animal's got to feel safe, right? If it feels like that scary thing could hurt it, then we're not in a good place, right? So practitioners will also want to be well versed in the application of non-coercive negative reinforcement, this whole nonlinear contingency analysis stuff we've been talking about, providing degrees of freedom. And I think a really important part of this is really understanding the body language of your species and the individual with which you are working. Because like for me, like I was saying, obviously we want to be able to make sure that we're not creating these big fear responses, but also being able to celebrate at the end, being able to be like, yeah, you did it. Woohoo. This is fun. Even, I know we've got a lot of people here that are familiar with parrots. Like, I talked about how with people can get excited with chimps and stuff, but you guys know with parrots too, we've got parrots that'll really mirror your emotional, response as well. And so Blulu especially, who's back here, she'll really engage with me with my face and everything. And, if I'm petting her really calmly, she'll just melt. If I get excited with my face, she'll, mirror that back to me. So, parrots can also really, they have that potential as well. So, I think it's just really something that can be really interesting to explore further. I think it's just, something we haven't discussed very much before. So I don't know, something interesting. You know me, I like to give you food for thought. So there you go. That's our discussion for this week. What is new? Well, it's not so new. I've been telling you about this for a while, but it's coming up. I can't believe we're mid-May. But on Monday, May 29th, I am speaking with a whole bunch of people. Well, the conference goes for more days than just May 29th, but I'm going to be speaking on May 29th at 11-ish to 12:50 with several other presenters, but there's actually 23 presentations featuring the constructional approach and how it applies to a wide variety of situations, and it's going to be live and in person in Boston, Massachusetts. If you're in the area and you want to join us, the annual Applied Behavior Analysis International Conference. And I'm going to give lots of examples of how the constructional approach has really transformed my training. And I've got lots of video examples in that one. So if you can join us, that would be awesome. And I've mentioned it before, but again, just I talked a little bit about degrees of freedom in this presentation, but if you really want to get into that, Sean Will and Masa Nishimuta will be our next GOATS presenters. I told you last time I didn't have a date, and I still don't have a date for that, but I'm just giving you an early heads up on that. And then I did want to remind people that the Constructional Approach to Animal and Welfare and Training Conference is July 25th through 30th. This one is online, but what I forgot to tell you last time is that there is a special 50% discount for people who work in shelters, rescues, zoos, aquariums, employees, volunteers of animal hospital employees, and students in colleges and universities. The early bird deadline is May 31st, so that is also coming up soon. So I wanted to make sure I gave you a heads up on that. If you go to caawt.com, you'll see a tab for the 2022 conference. That one is online. And so that one is sort of an evening event. The time is a East Coast of the U.S. time. So that's going to be earlier in the day for people in the Central and Pacific. And then there's also an on-demand version for those of you that it might be in the middle of the night for you. So that one you want to get on top of. And then I also want to remind people who are members of animaltrainingfundamentals.com, we do have an affiliate program. So if you are loving what you learn in animaltrainingfundamentals.com, you can actually share your affiliate link. You get a personal link that's specific to you, and you just, you can put that on your website, on your blogs, you can just share it on Facebook, whatever. Share it in emails, and people who join using that link, you'll get a 30% commission. And if, with as few as 4 affiliates joining, then your membership is paid for and you're making income. So the way you find that is when you log into the dashboard, just scroll down to the bottom and you'll see the affiliate dashboard. And if you click on affiliate FAQs, you'll see a nice little video that explains how the whole thing works. And the affiliate area will take you to your own private links. So there you go. And if you're not a member, here's how you become a member. Just go to animaltrainingfundamentals.com and pick your membership option. Okay, I think that's everything. And look at that, 11:59, right on time. All right, so Chris says that was a fun discussion. I hope it got you thinking. Yeah, it's cool because there's some behavior science behind all that stuff. And Patricia says, thanks once again. Love your doggo's happy wiggle. Me too. I mean, for me, it's really fun to see that he is not afraid of the hose at all anymore. In fact, every time I fill up those water bowls outside now, which I do frequently because it's really hot out here now, and all the wild birds come to those water bowls now. So I actually am in the market for a good bird bath. I got to go pick one up. He's there before I've even, started cleaning out everything, because he's like, ooh, fresh water. He just loves it now. And it was so fun to be able to, and that was one training session, as you can, imagine. But it was really fun to use all the things we've been learning from nonlinear contingency analysis, constructional approach, and everything. It all goes in there. And then, to learn about what's going on with thrill seeking and sort of see that little snippet right there. And you can kind of see that, just that one, I know it's just like a little moment in time, but when you pull all these things from behavior science and, pull it all in there, it just gets you thinking. It's just kind of fun. And then it just starts you thinking about, well, where else might that happening? And to me, one of the big ones is for me, especially working with herds, I've always thought about why do herd animals approach predators? I don't think it's just gathering information, because they do it all the time. And they do it when, it's too frequent. And it's the same thing with the crows pulling tails. That pulling tail thing, you see it so much. I have video of, I also have an old video of a crow pecking a capybara in the butt, and the video quality wasn't very good, so I didn't want to stick it in there. And I remember being like, oh, that's so funny. Look at the crow poking the capybara in the butt. But I was like, there's so many examples of that. And you start asking yourself, why does that happen? And and then you start digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you start thinking about, well, and then you start relating it to your behavior, right? And you just keep asking questions. But, the really important thing I hope that you guys got from this is to remember to not think of it as like a pathology, or, like it's inherent that you're just a thrill seeker. There's more to it, right? So again, we go back to what's reinforcing about that. Why would somebody want to do that? And again, if, it's not just because you have some thrill-seeking disease, right? There's things about it that feel good, right? And so that's why somebody's doing it. And so if we know that, then we can take advantage of that too. So that's what put me on that path is, well, how can we harness that and take advantage of that and use that to our advantage? And so, and again, they're saying there's evolutionary advantage to it. So we're getting super interesting, thank you, comments. And yeah, so that's what we're here for, right? To find out ways to take advantage of these things that already exist and apply them to what we do. Gonna watch my butt around crows now. Yeah. Just don't bend over and hang out around a crow for too long, I guess. Yeah. Well, they apparently enjoy life. They are enjoying life by seeking out new and varied environments to get some thrills. So all right, guys. Well, we did pretty good on time, and I hope you. We do have a Tower Talk tomorrow too. I forgot to announce that Tower Talk tomorrow for members, and yes, and I am here next week. But then the week after that, I think I am in Boston. So yeah, or flying back or something. All right. So so tomorrow Tower Talk, and hopefully we'll see some of you there tomorrow. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.